Thank you if you're here watching this video. Another one from the networking series. Last video, we went over network analysis software. This video, we're going to look into configuring and maintaining DNS servers. I did something like this adjacent in a prior video, but nonetheless, this is what we're sticking to today. We're going to install and configure an alternative DNS server, right? So what this looks like, right, initially first is let's talk about DNS servers in general. Actually, let me get off of Linux while I'm talking about this. All right. The DNS servers on the network, they translate host name to IP addresses, right? So for example, when communicating with devices on the network, an easily remembered host name can be used instead of the IP address. Now, when using host names, it can simplify troubleshooting network related issues. Now, when the DNS server is configured, depending on the need, additional DNS server functionality can be configured for the hierarchy of the network, like root DNS, internal and external DNS servers, authoritative name, DNS caching, and time to live configuration for recursive lookup, canonical name, mail exchange record, start of authority, point of record, text record, service record, name server record, and so on and so forth, right? So I'm actually going to swivel over to DMO1, not server. So we're going to first install a DNS server, right? So an internal network utilizes a a so an internal network utilizes an internal DNS server to translate IP addresses to host names. So an additional DNS um, servers can be configured on the network to ensure high availability of the DNS server, right? So let's actually start here in the server manager, naturally, right? So we're just clicking through, right? And let's see here. And what we're going to do is enable the DNS server here. Of course, we're going to add these features, right? And then we're going to hit next, right? And we're going to hit next again. And then we're going to hit next. And then we're going to, of course, install, right? These new features, right? The install sometimes can take a couple of minutes, sometimes it doesn't. But nonetheless, we'll be looking to configuring the additional DNS server once it's fully succeeded and completed. All right, so in an internal network, right, it's best practice normally to configure an additional DNS server. This is to ensure high availability and fault tolerance as well. So I'm going to swivel over to DCO1. I'm actually going to take a look at the DNS through their server manager over there. Once it loads here, let's take a look. All right, and what I'm looking for in particular is their forward lookup zones. Actually, let me just expand it here. All right, and actually, let me take a look at these properties here. On it, let me, there it is. All right, perfect. So let's take a look at the zone transfers. And let's allow some zone transfers. The default looks pretty okay. Let me hit apply here. Then we're going to hit OK. And actually, I'm going to close this out here. Now I'm going to swivel back over to DMO1, right? And I'm going to take a look at the DNS for this server as well. All right. And let's see. Okay, it looks like I need to connect. And naturally would be, let's see. Okay. Contacting server. The IP address specified for the existing DNS server is the domain controller on the internal network, which has already been set up as a DNS server, so it might take a couple minutes to resolve the IP address. And there she is, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to click this, right? Now, by selecting the added DNS server, the DNS records of the server can be viewed. It might take a couple of minutes to replicate the content, but the replicate DNS records are read only anyway. So take a look through here. I'm actually going to do this really quick. Let's do a new zone, right? And I want to do a secondary zone here, right? And for lookup is fine. Now, by creating a secondary DNS zone, the primary DNS zone's DNS records will be replicated to the secondary. So this will ensure, again, high availability for our servers. So for the name, I'm actually going to hit browse here. Just going to click here. I want to do that. Right. Okay. Not sure why it's not. There it is. Let's do practice labs. It's fine. Do okay here, and then we can hit next. All right. For this one, we're going to do naturally this one. Right. There it is. All right. All right, perfect. And we can now hit finish. All right, and now we can see everything in all its glory. Right. So I'm actually going to let's expand this one. Let's take a look at the four lookup zones. This zone not loaded, right? Again, this is going to take a while to replicate the data, right? But nonetheless, I'll just close this out. And now we can configure a DNS record. So uh, a DNS-A record can be added to the DNS server, and then these records can then be used by the client computer to locate specific resources on the network. So DNS records are created using a specific resource's IP address, then translated to a host name, making it easier to locate the specific resource. So let me actually swivel over here. I don't think this is a good one to use. So I'm actually going to take a look at the DNS manager here. And then let's take a look here, right? See what's going on in this one. And then let's see. Let's actually do this. Let's do a new one. Now, then we're going to do a third, right? I'm going to add the host, naturally done. All right, perfect. So now a DNS-A record is added, right? As you can see here, to a DNS server to specify a specific host on the network. In this example, the IP address that I have ending in 0.3 will be translated to the host name of storageserve.practicelabs.com. So for this, I'm going to swivel over to Win10 if it wants to work today. All right, so let's take a look at our PowerShell here. Naturally, we're going to run it in admin, right? Perfect, there we go. So let's do some IP configuration for flushing out the DNS. All right, successfully flushed. So now we can do some IP config to register. Okay. Now executing these commands will update the DNS records for the client machine, right? So now it's going to ping the one I just created. Okay. Pinging. Now, after updating the client's machine's DNS records, we'll see the newly created DNS records resolved successfully. And similarly, the other DNS records can be created depending on the need of the network. And these records can include MX, SRV, like the one I did, NS, and a few others. But nonetheless, this brings us to the end of our video where we ultimately wanted to configure and maintain DNS servers. And we did that by installing and configuring an alternate DNS server than our initial one. This one was definitely a lot of fun. Can't wait to move on to the next one, which be geared towards DHCP, or the Dynamic Host Control Protocol server installation and configuration. Hope to see you there. Stay curious, stay secure.